Wrong. He also seems to think the federal government should not be in the business of harming the climate for free speech and academic freedom on campus. Now, on both these fronts, Barack Obama, I accuse you of a profound hypocrisy. As I explained previously, the Obama administration carried out the exact same policy against not just a small number of elite educational institutions, but virtually every college and university in the country under.
Oh my God.
All right, let's hear about Barack. I don't know. Y'all give me y'all thoughts. Is this the same thing? Is it different? Who knows? Who knows?
I see that earlier this week, former President Barack Obama applauded Harvard University for standing up to the Trump administration. Now, unlike Columbia University, which has swiftly fallen in line and agreed to implement various policies demanded by President Donald Trump in exchange for the restoration of $400 million in federal grants, Harvard is prepared to fight back. Quote, "We have informed the administration through our legal counsel that we will not accept their proposed agreement," said Harvard's president, Alan Garber. "The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights," end quote. Now, the Trump administration had demanded changes to university curriculum, the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI provisions, the prevention of masked protesting, and other changes ostensibly aimed at countering anti-Semitism on campus. Now, opponents of these policies, civil libertarians, free speech groups among them, counter that the federal government's threat to withholding funding is a violation of Harvard's First Amendment rights. How Harvard governs its academic programs and who should have a say in that governance is up to Harvard, not the federal government, writes the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. The First Amendment and basic principles of academic freedom require no less. FIRE also warns that this will likely not be the last time that the federal government tries to extort a private institution and that, quote, "opposing the government's unconstitutional demands is the only path forward."
All right, so very quickly, before we get into what Barack said, do y'all think that a government should be able to withhold funding from a school if the school does not align with the policies that the government is setting forth? And he mentioned, and it was interesting, and the reason why I actually had to watch this video like 4 or 5 times, and I'll be totally honest, I still don't have a good grasp on it. Donald Trump is saying that it's for the DEI. I don't know whether it's for the DEI, just the DEI, or if it was for the anti-Semitism that was being displayed on a lot of these campuses. I don't know what really are the motivations. But just from a general standpoint, do you think that the government should be able to decide the states, or the schools that they're giving funding to, based on whether or not those schools are going to abide by the policies that the government wants them to abide by? That would be my question for y'all. Just that question first and foremost. And then we'll get into, I guess, our opinion on the situations, or on the current situation. But let's hear what Barack Obama had to say regarding Harvard standing on business.
Similarly, Obama praised Harvard for setting, quote, "an example for other higher ed institutions." Obama clearly believes the Trump administration's threats to deprive Harvard of billions in federal funding is wrong. He also seems to think the federal government should not be in the business of harming the climate for free speech and academic freedom on campus. Now, on both these fronts, Barack Obama, I accuse you of a profound hypocrisy. As I explained previously, the Obama administration carried out the exact same policy against not just a small number of elite educational institutions, but virtually every college and university in the country. Under Obama, the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights compelled schools that receive federal funding to change their sexual misconduct policies in ways that undermine basic due process protections for accused students and also for professors. Now, these new policies also harmed free speech and academic freedom.
Okay, so if you're me, you kind of heard something, but you're not sure if you heard what you just heard. So I'm going to rewind that part, just because I told y'all this was just hard for me to, I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe I just having a rough night last night. I don't know, but this was just hard for me to process all this. But listen to what Barack Obama did.
Carried out the exact same policy against not just a small number of elite educational institutions, but virtually every college and university in the country. Under Obama, the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights compelled schools that receive federal funding to change their sexual misconduct policies in ways that undermine basic due process protections for accused students and also for professors. Now, these new policies also harmed free speech and academic freedom, as several professors who actually spoke out against the policies were subsequently accused of violating them. This was the perverse logic of Biden's approach to Title IX, the federal statute that outlaws sex discrimination in education.
Very quickly, let me catch up. Steve wrote an interesting comment. 2.2 billion. Well, I don't know if it's interesting as far as just. Let's hear the comment. $2.2 billion of federal funding is going to have strings attached, no matter who was in office. To my knowledge, grants always have stipulations.
Ew. Sorry to interrupt the video. We got a new challenge. 20,000 by the end of April. We fell short in March, but we're going to get our goal this month. Thank you all in advance for those that are going to continue to like, subscribe, maybe even leave some comments and let us know how we're doing. And on that note, let me let y'all get back to the video and I'll see y'all soon. Ew.
Would have to see the agreement. Yes. See, I hadn't read Steve's entire comment. That's why I was like, what's interesting nowadays is just maybe should be perceived as just obvious. Yeah, any money that is being sent out for a particular reason. Any amount of money, any exchange of money, like Steve said, usually comes with some stipulations. So I guess the stipulations are okay when you align with the overall agenda that it's pushing, but those stipulations are not okay when it's used to push an agenda that you're not aligned with. And this is just where we are right now in society. This is just where we are. Yo, Trump won. It is what it is. He decided to get rid of DEI. Now, I happen to be somebody who doesn't like DEI. I don't think that it impacts society in a way that I guess I'm giving a little grace here saying that it was intended. Matter of fact, whether or not it was actually intended to impact and help certain groups of people, I don't even think so. But yeah, based on what they say their intentions are, it just doesn't work. So rather than arguing about the morals and, you know, whether or not we should have DEI, it just hasn't worked, in my opinion. So even somebody that doesn't agree with DEI, if Barack Obama was using, you know, giving certain schools federal funding and like, hey, we're pushing these DEI principles, the country voted for this, I'm in power, this is what we're doing, then I would have to sit back and say like, you know, don't take the money. Shout out to Harvard. Stand on business. You don't have to do what Columbia did. You don't have to make a deal. Look at all these law firms, the Skaddens, these other big law firms. Y'all are big enough to fight this. You don't have to accept some type of settlement where you're giving Trump hours. You don't have to do any of these things. But you're going to lose your federal contracts if you're one of these like Skadden-like groups. You're going to lose certain clearances. You're going to lose certain relationships. Schools, you're going to lose a certain amount of funding. It just is what it is. But if it's important to you, stand on it. Y'all make enough money, right? Y'all be all right. All the money that people make graduating from Harvard and giving back, y'all will be perfectly fine. If it's important to you, stand on it. Don't take any funding. Who's to say that the government, a lot of these colleges are private institutions, private businesses. The fact that you just think that you're entitled to federal funding, I don't agree with that. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
His federal bureaucrats created such a morass that campus administrators felt obligated to investigate professors for criticizing the education department. Moreover, the Obama-era policies were stridently opposed by Harvard's law faculty, and that's really what I wanted to get into today. In October of 2014, 28 Harvard law professors, 28, signed an open letter condemning the federal government under Obama for meddling and encouraging the university to resist the tyranny of Obama's Title IX enforcement. Quote from their open letter. The university's sexual harassment policy departs dramatically from these legal principles, jettisoning balance and fairness in the rush to appease certain federal administrative officials, wrote the professors. We recognize large amounts of federal funding may ultimately be at stake, but Harvard University is positioned as well as any academic institution in the country to stand up for principle in the face of funding threats. Again, I wasn't talking about Trump now. That was talking about Obama 10 years ago. The signatories included Elizabeth Bartholet, a well-known professor of civil rights and family law. The signating threats. Again,
What's wild is, like, y'all know I'm always doing something else. Like, I'm worried about the next video and stuff. So looking down real quick, until he just said it and reminded us again, I'm thinking that this is about Trump. But Harvard University is positioned as well as any academic institution in the country to stand up for principle in the face of funding threats. They're talking about Obama. And this is the thing. I think the main takeaway for us to have in all of this is how hypocritical all of these politicians are that we hold in the highest regards. There's no level of consistency. And when you even think back to how things were, let's say even like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where you couldn't just pull up a clip on a show and show 1996 Nancy Pelosi or 2008 Bernie Sanders saying the same thing that Trump's saying, doing and implementing with the tariffs now, and them fighting for him back then. You couldn't do that before. So it was a lot easier perhaps to manipulate people before. However, on the flip side of it is you can just pump certain content that can also mislead people. You can edit certain things a certain way. You can do the very fine people have that comment. We don't need to get into that. Just notice the hypocrisy. I feel like the main takeaway that we're all going to have, maybe after the last 10 years, maybe 20 years, is that these politicians should not be held on a pedestal. We shouldn't be rooting for these politicians like fans of a football team. We shouldn't be rooting for we shouldn't be even influenced by a lot of the people that were influenced. But when it comes to the politicians in particular, we need to be more critical of them. We need to hold them to a higher standard. We can't just allow them to tell us any and everything and us be moved based on promises that most likely are never going to be kept. We actually got to hold people accountable to doing things before they ask us for our vote, to standing on certain principles and showing us exactly who they are, their perspective of the world, before they ask us for their vote. That would prevent a lot of these hypocrisies. That would allow us to serve as that checks and balance system to the government, rather than us just getting manipulated by these politicians. Barack Obama, and maybe, I don't know if Barack Obama's brand to you guys has taken a hit over the last year or two, but to me, it's just taken a significant hit. People are not believing in Barack as much. And maybe this is just Trump's communication style, where we realize, Barack, with all that pastor talk, when you actually open up the hood, look under the hood of the car, when you actually see what he was doing when he was in office, you sit back and you look like, damn, he deported more people. He dropped bombs on more people. This guy with his beautiful family, amazing smile, who seems to be hip. He plays basketball at the White House, invites rappers there and all that other type of stuff. Was he actually the evil one? Was he actually the hypocritical one? And now that we have a guy like Trump in office that has made it popular to just say what's on your mind and just to be direct in communication style, that Barack Obama, nobody's trying to hear that anymore. Now, people may say that that's a good thing. People may say that it's a bad thing. People may say that it's just a necessary thing. But that, I think, is the main takeaway. Let's keep going.
In the country to stand up for principle in the face of funding threats. Again, I wasn't talking about Trump now. That was talking about Obama 10 years ago. The signatories included Elizabeth Bartholet, a well-known professor of civil rights and family law, and also Charles Ogletree, who had actually been described as a mentor to the Obamas when they were students at Harvard. In separate commentary, Bartholet described the, quote, government's position as madness and said that Harvard should be ashamed of itself for caving. She wrote, "I believe that history will demonstrate the federal government's position to be wrong, that our society will look back on this time as a moment of madness, and that Harvard University will be deeply ashamed at the role it played in simply caving to the government's position," she told the Wall Street Journal. Well, it's a good thing.
Keep in mind, that one was 2014. I know some people may be listening to the show and hear certain things. It's funny, you hear certain things and you just kind of like, oh, they talking about Trump. Harvard caving, right? It's talking about Trump. No, it's just more and more hypocrisy.
Caving to the government's position, she told the Wall Street Journal. Well, it's a good thing that Harvard has found its spine now that the president is Trump instead of Obama. But it's ridiculous for Obama to complain at present about an unlawful and ham-headed attempt to stifle academic freedom. He should look in the mirror.
All right, so we're going to leave that one there. Niall, he did give a response to this, but you guys can jump on there and check it out. We're going to move on. I just want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about this next situation. We're going to play a little bit. So Jason Whitlock, he's been having a lot of these conversations. It's Dak. Just want to thank you for checking out our video and visiting the OG Network. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like. And if you're looking to join a community of inspired individuals striving for purposeful abundance, subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, share the video with some friends and family. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.